Hey, I'm Mike from Retro Boost, and it's time to talk about the 5X Pro. I've been waiting on this for a while. I got the RetroTINK 5X Pro a few weeks ago. I wanted to wait until I got a good understanding of it before I wanted to talk about it. Now I think I'm ready to do like a first impressions type video. So we're going to talk about what is the 5X Pro, how it works and how it operates, using it and whatnot. Go into the actual gameplay, of course. There's a couple of important things about that though. There's a bit of a quirk that I've been dealing with and trying to work through. After that though, we'll show off the gameplay. If all you care about is seeing the gameplay, check the timestamps in the description. I'll mark down each console in there so you can jump right to it. But if you own RetroTINK, I would say hold off and just check out one thing about operating it, because there's a way around the remote that I found that I think is pretty funny, or at least interesting. If you would be so kind, please consider subscribing. It is the best way to help me grow the channel too, but regardless, I do appreciate you watching. So let's jump into my first impressions of the RetroTINK 5X Pro. Well, let's ask the obvious question first. What is the 5X Pro? Well, if you weren't aware of it already, RetroTINK has had a number of enhancement devices for prepping old game consoles to make them look better on new screens. That's kind of the basic summary. What the hell does that even mean, Mike? Well, you take a 240p source, like say what a Super Nintendo outputs. It's composite, it's red, white, and yellow. Goes into the RetroTINK 2X Pro, it gets upscaled, or line doubled rather, to 480p, and then outputs with HDMI. So we've done two things. We've converted it from analog to digital, which is great because most modern day TVs don't have like composite jacks on them anymore, or if they do, there's some kind of weird converter thing that goes into a 3.5 jack and it's horrible. B, we've taken it and actually improved the resolution, which helps make it all the better when it finally does get to your modern day TV. The 5X Pro is the latest evolution of this. It actually defaults out as 1080p, so full high definition. It can even be toggled to do higher than that. 1440p is the maximum, which is really cool because we're talking a giant leap versus what the previous devices could do. How is it going to do that though? That sounds a lot more complicated than line doubling. Well, it is. It's actively processing the signals a lot more than the previous devices used to, because it needs to. Taking something like a Super Nintendo or even an NES and bringing it to 1080p is not easy. It has to do some active processing. That does create some latency, but I haven't noticed it, which is very, very good. And what's even better is that old consoles like the NES and the Super Nintendo look really good when they get all the way up to 1080p, which is kind of shocking. I figured that those would look the worst out of everything that I put into it, but they actually look kind of the best, which is really impressive. Before we go into showing the gameplay footage more though, I want to talk about the hardware, like the inputs, the outputs, the design, and the remote. And I have a tip with the remote too, because the remote has been a point of controversy for some people's reviews or talking points on this. I kind of wanted to go over that and a possible side solution regarding it. First, let's touch on the design. I think this is a great improvement over the previous devices for one reason. Everything is on one side. All the inputs and outputs are on the back, which is awesome because they kind of passed through on the previous models. On the 2X Pro and 2X Pro M, you're putting your source in the back and then HDMI and power comes out the front. That makes it kind of hard to like cleanly organize it, at least for my setup. I don't know if other people have had luck with it, but it's kind of a pain for me personally. Everything on the back of the 5X Pro leads to some pretty clean looking solutions depending on your situation. That's just awesome. The SCART input is on the side, but that's not terrible. At least it's not the front, is the bottom line. They're all not on the front, which is great. There's also physical buttons for changing inputs and messing with the menu right on the front too. So if you didn't want to use the remote, there are buttons. Regarding the remote though, it does come with the remote. Now this remote is not like custom made for the 5X Pro. It's like some kind of generic-y remote. Really reminds me of like a Roku remote. It has like the same kind of feel to it. Now, it works. If there's any complaint, it's just that the buttons aren't what they are. So like imagine, like playing a Blu-ray with an Xbox controller. Those buttons are just kind of arbitrarily assigned. Some of them make sense, like naturally the A button should be the go button, but it's like, left bumper to engage slow-mo. Like it doesn't always make sense in your head. You're like, I don't want the button to do that. That's kind of what this remote's like. The mouse clicking button for changing resolution output types or formats, I mean, like, okay. So you kind of have to get used to it just not making any sense at all, which I was able to get used to pretty quick, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have a real problem with the remote personally. If you wanted to like find an alternative, you could try Harmony. Harmony remotes can be programmed to control RetroTINK devices. RetroTINK as a brand exists in the Harmony database. And even though it exists, I do recommend doing like a custom thing for one reason. If you do a custom thing and say that the RetroTINK device you're adding is a game console, you can do activities with it, which is great because I could have like a voice-controlled Harmony activity launch with, say, Alexa, or just use the remote itself. It's just convenient that way. But a Harmony remote that uses IR can be programmed to completely replace the RetroTINK one, which is what I've done since. That said, I don't really hate the remote that it comes with. It does work, which is good. As far as using the remote goes, the 5X Pro has like a full-on interface to it, as opposed to the old devices, which were just a couple of buttons on the side or the front of the device for changing inputs or stuff like that. So the 5X Pro has a ton of stuff you can change. You can change the output resolution, anywhere between like 240p all the way up to 1440p, depending on what's supported and what's going into it. The default is 1080p though. You can also change the aspect ratio. There's a whole bunch of different options for the output type there. There's a bunch of preset ones plus generic 4:3 and generic 16:9. Those are the two that I use most frequently. And then finally you've got the interpolation mode, switching between sharp and soft. So everything that I've done so far has been 1080p output, and then I toggle between 4:3 and 16:9 as necessary for the console if it makes sense or not. Generally speaking, all the component consoles are 16:9, everything else is 4:3. And then for interpolation, sharp seems to work best for the oldest consoles like the NES and Super Nintendo, and I use soft for all the 3D consoles like that. There's also additional things you can do as well, like scan line generation and all kinds of other neat little things you can mess with here and there. There's a ton to explore and find. Good news is though, the unit's pretty plug and play for the most part though. You'll get 1080p output from it by default. All you really have to do is switch the aspect ratio as necessary if you want to get the best possible experience, which is very good. One last thing before we start is a little quirk with the capture system. If I didn't address this, people would surely be asking questions about it. So whenever I'm running the 5X Pro into my capture system, which everything goes through an Extron switch, then to the 5X Pro, from there to my Elgato internal capture card, the image for certain consoles is pushed down and to the right. So it's like off center and pushed down a little bit. It's really strange. I can compensate for it by moving the image like up and to the left a little bit to kind of recenter it, but some consoles will still show up like really strange and pushed down or pushed to the side a little bit. It isn't like totally even in the frame. It's very strange. It tends to be just the component consoles for the most part that are doing that. So like the Wii, the Xbox is like the main culprit for this, but the Wii does it too. The PlayStation 2's done it here and there, but not for everything. For the most part, the composite consoles have been totally fine. So I don't know what's causing it or why. I've tried multiple capture cards. I have a StarTech USB one, tried it on that one, still does it, so I know it's not the Elgato one specifically. Maybe the two of these just happen to have the same problem, so if I try some third brand at some point down the road, it won't do it. I don't know. I never had problems before with RetroTINK products in Elgato. For the most part, I did like way back right at the beginning where the capture would like cut for a second or two, but then never again since. So I don't know that it's specifically a fault of Elgato. It really can't be, because the StarTech USB card does it too. It's the same exact problem. Again though, doesn't do it on a TV, like direct to a TV, no problem. So don't let it dissuade you from purchase, because the thing does what it's supposed to do. It looks great on a TV. So wanted to address that. Now we'll get into the gameplay clips of all the consoles I own. For the most part, it'll be a mixture of composite, S-Video, and component. All the consoles like NES, Super Nintendo, N64, Genesis, Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, those are all going to be composite. I do have a special one for N64 though. We'll do both composite and S-Video. PlayStation 2, Wii, Xbox, those will all be component. and for various things, their settings are adjusted to get the best for a modern screen. So PlayStation 2 set to widescreen, so is the Xbox, so is the Wii, etc. And then lastly, we have a special dumb thing. I got PlayStation 3 wired up with a component. So that'll be a 1080i signal that the 5X Pro will process to 1080p. Everything will be output to 1080p. I know that it does support 1440, but I wanted to just focus on the 1080p mode for now. We'll do more wild stuff down the road. So let's get those clips going, and we'll check back afterward to kind of get my impression of the experience as a whole so far.
Let's get started! This battle is for you who wanted to get into a battle right away! here's the first move. Hit the restart. Hit you Thunder Wave. Oops, it's paralyzed. The crowd's excitement is building over this hot battle.
Here we go! Do you copy? You're ready?
Mecha Godzilla versus Godzilla 2000. Monsters, fight!
Concentrate fire on Godzilla. Monster in range. Fire at will.
Woo-wee, kid! That fight was so one-sided, I think I'm gonna eat my chocolate bar sideways. Come on! Come on! Crap, no! No, no, no! See ya!
And there we have it, whole bunch of demos. Which ones do I think look the best? Well, it surprised me. I think NES and Super Nintendo look amazing processed up to 1080p. Like, I never would have thought that those would be the best ones out of the bunch, but I think they are. They look clean. And again, like on a TV even, like it's amazing like how great it looks, because the capture system, like I've described, some quirks here and there. Actually, I think Super Nintendo's fine for that. But like it was impressive. NES and Super Nintendo look awesome. N64 was the one that I was a little disappointed in. I think the 2X Pro has the advantage still on N64 content. Even with S-Video, I think the 2X Pro still looks a little bit better, if I'm being honest. Everything else still looked fine though too. So I thought PlayStation 1 looks really good, that looks really clean. PlayStation 2, the right game can be gorgeous. Metal Gear Solid 3 was pretty rockin'. I've also done Ratchet & Clank. That's going to be in an upcoming video though. Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal. And Xbox also did pretty good. Now Xbox, I had to change the RGB mode for that to get the best out of it. Certain games would be like really dark, and if I put RGB to limited, it made it a lot better. So that's the only one that had like maintenance that needed to be performed. Everything else looked great for its default settings, whether it be 4:3 or 16:9. So overall, I've really enjoyed my time with the 5X Pro. It's already become like my main thing. Like I've been using it for everything since getting it. Different capture here and there for different projects. I ended up liking it so much that all the content for the 200 subscriber special was done like with the 5X Pro if possible. And I think it's great that I finally found a way to integrate the PlayStation 3 into the mix, because that's just too much dumb fun. PlayStation 3 looked really good. Obviously you could just use HDMI and get 1080p out of it, but hey, we're experimenting here, right? So all in all, very good. Capture quirk aside, if you're buying it for recreational use for yourself right to a TV, you're gonna love it. It does exactly what it's meant to do. Everything looks really good. The only thing that I think looks better on an older device would be N64 content, specifically on the 2X Pro. 2X Pro has that smooth filter. It's just amazing. I think it holds the advantage above anything else. Not to say that it's bad on the 2X Pro, or on the 5X Pro, sorry. Not to say it's bad. It's all really good and it does its job, but I think it just looks a little better, a little cleaner on the 2X Pro. And as I noticed that gave me the idea. Let's do a side-by-side. So that'll be the next video coming out. Definitely subscribe if you want to get notified, because we're doing a 2X Pro / 2X Pro M side-by-side with the 5X Pro next. That'll be a good fun time and I look forward to it. So until then, I will see you guys. Thanks for watching. If you subscribe, thank you for your support. Have a good rest of your day.